All right, next up is UIW. They are represented tonight by head coach Jeff Dow, student athletes Tiana Gardner and Jacqueline Moore. Coach, if you would, please make an opening statement.
Well, first of all, obviously just unbelievably proud of everybody associated with our program, namely our student athletes. This was a tremendous run. As we told them earlier today, we've already won. There was no pressure, going into tonight's game. Of course, we would have liked to have won, but to go on the run that we did, just to get here to win 4 games in 4 days, and obviously tonight was our 5th game in 7 days. That's obviously a little bit unique, and but I thought their competitive nature never changed. They stayed together, with each other, and came together at the right time of the year. And like I said, just really proud of everybody that contributed to this. And tough loss, obviously. Sometimes you can point to one stat. Sometimes you can't. Tonight you certainly can. The rebounding is certainly what killed us. Getting out rebounded by 19 and minus 20 on the O boards. And these guys know one of the things we talk a lot about is second chance points, meaning just like what it sounds like after you miss, you get a second or third shot. And in a very close game, we got outscored 21-3 in second chance points. So that's tough. But we knew that coming in. That was a big part of the scouting report going in, and how well that they were going to go to the O boards, and they certainly lived up to that.
Open up for questions just for the student athletes at this time. Chris in the front.
For either of you, obviously disappointed right now, but when you look back and what you accomplished this season, what does it mean for this program moving forward?
Jacqueline, why don't you go first?
Obviously, of course, right now we're feeling a little disappointed because we knew we could have had the game. Like, it was in our hands. We had all the, I don't want to say momentum, but we had the opportunity to close out the game. We just couldn't do it. But of course, we're still happy being Southland Conference tournament champions. So that feels great. It's just hard to see that right now, I feel like. But of course, we're all really proud of ourselves.
Tiana?
Yeah, I agree with Jacqueline. Today's game doesn't take away from anything that we've done over the past week in the Southland tournament. Every game, like Coach Dow said last press conference, every game we're making history, and today the game didn't go away. There's definitely other things that we could have corrected, things we could have did better. So it does just hurt knowing that we could have had the game and we could have been playing still.
Other questions? Chris, go ahead.
Again, Coach touched on it about the rebounding. What was the biggest difference in your guys' minds on the offensive glass for them?
Coach Dow always tells us we got to have all 5 in, rebounding every time a shot goes up. So there was definitely moments where we'd have some of us, I guess, just standing, watching, or we'd be looking up to get the rebound. We clearly weren't out jumping any of them. So it was all about putting a body on somebody, which we clearly didn't do a lot of the time. They had 22 offensive rebounds, so we just never did what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, they wanted every rebound more than we did, and it kind of showed how many times they'll get multiple O boards in one single possession. Even if they couldn't finish it up, it's O board, O board, O board. And I think definitely just the blocking out and just not even having inside position like what Coach Dow says it isn't enough.
Other questions from the floor? Anyone? We'll go to Alexa then.
Hi there, this is Alexa Philpott from ESPN. I know obviously the loss is fresh now, but what do you think you might remember the most out of this whole experience of being able to say that you played in an NCAA tournament?
Tiana, you want to go first?
I think it just really does mean a lot. Not a lot of teams, not a lot of players get to do this, have this experience, and the loss is pretty fresh. But yeah, it definitely doesn't take away from how far we've come and just where we are now.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, you don't want to end the season on a loss, but it still feels good, winning the tournament, everything. It was we didn't have the greatest season we could have, but we pulled it together at the right time and ended up getting rings. So.
Anything else for the student athletes? All right, y'all can go. We'll open up for the floor for questions for Coach Dow. Chris?
Coach, same thing I asked him about, obviously disappointed right now, but when you look back at this season, what will you remember and everything that was accomplished?
Well, needless to say, I'm going to focus on what happened in the last week. And like these three alluded to, we would have liked to have had a better record. I think you pointed out yesterday we had 19 games in single digits. Now it's 20. 20 games that were relatively close, and so many of those that came down to a possession or two. And right there, obviously we won some, and we obviously lost some in the process, whatever. But it's tough to put into words. Like I said, the accomplishment. Going into last Thursday's game, and the running joke, like I said, this is the biggest game in school history. So last Thursday at 11 a.m., we were in the 11 a.m. bracket the first couple days. So just beating Nichols State. Jocelyn Moore was going on a 6-0 run in the last 13 seconds and hitting a buzzer beater. Obviously moments like that are great for Jocelyn and our team. And then of course, knocking off the 4 seed, the 1 seed, the 3 seed in successive days, certainly is a testament to not just their physical toughness, but their mental toughness to bounce back day after day after day and respond like that. And even tonight, obviously as a coach, you're paranoid about a lot of things. You just don't know how they're going to react. We did play 6 sophomores and 3 juniors. This is a first-time experience for these guys, and you just don't know, are they going to run out of gas? We're going to get off to a slow start. We didn't get off to a slow. we're up 2 at the end of the first quarter, and we scored 19 points. The other day we scored 5 in the first quarter of the championship game. So I thought we settled in, and it wasn't for lack of effort. And they were trying to do the right thing. So I think it's going to be great, for our program. And I said this the other day. I don't mean to be redundant, but obviously not just for women's basketball, for UIW athletics. Obviously as we're transitioning into a new conference, into the WAC, and then great for our university as a whole. Certainly to have be on the big stage, tonight, the first ever play-in game, in NCAA women's basketball history, the first game of this entire NCAA tournament, the stage was ours, tonight. And I thought we represented ourselves well, did not embarrass ourselves by any means. We were right there. So, excited, about the future, obviously, but like I said, really feel good, all things considered, what we accomplished over the course of the season.
Chris?
You touched on it just then, the young team you have, the sophomores and the juniors that played. How do you feel about what's coming back next year, and how can you build on this run right now?
Real excited. Just to kind of give you, Chris, a little more perspective, last year, I believe, it depends on which player we're talking about, but, we were quarantined on 6 separate occasions for 14 days. We played all of 15 games. Chloe Storr, the young lady, number 13 from Australia, couldn't get to our country till December 12th, through no fault of her own, going back to last year, her freshman year. The kid played 1 game all of last season. She was so far behind. And now, because of injuries and whatnot, she gets pressed into service in the last week, plays 5 games and had a lot of DNPs this year and came up huge and made a lot of big plays for us. So that's an example of what I'm saying in terms of the future and what we can have. Obviously, Jocelyn Moore has really only scratched the surface on how good she can be, as a first-team all-conference player, as a sophomore. Tiana Gardner, I think really, tournament MVP. Now she's going into her senior year with that under her belt, that confidence as well. And then obviously there's a host of other players that chipped in, as well over the past week. So, again, and with some of the, I should say one of the young ladies that was unfortunately out, with an injury, Brenna Perez. That's another sophomore coming back that played quite a bit this season, and not to mention our incoming recruits as well. So great experience. Again, we would have all liked to have been here a couple more days. My 6-year-old daughter, Helena, back there, was really wishing we'd been here a couple more days. If you know anything about kids, they love hotels and indoor pools. But so we would have liked to have been here a little bit longer. And just to have the experience. We knew what we would have been up against on Friday night, trust me on that. And it was very classy of Coach Staley and her staff and players to be in the tunnel, waiting for us as we came off the floor and congratulating us on the season that we had. But like I said, just unbelievably proud, and it's I apologize if I forget anybody, but there's a lot that goes into this, okay? In no particular order. Okay, Dr. Evans is going to commend me for being a smart husband, but I'm going to thank my wife. I'm going to refer to her again as Dr. Emily Dow. But Emily, my wife, and our two children, Chloe and Helena. It's tough, being a spouse of a coach, from November to March, and probably even tougher for the kids, so they, their patience, and it's been great having these guys on the ride, with us in the past 7 days, and them being right there. Dr. Evans, our president of our university, again, first-class guy, and so behind athletics. Obviously, our athletic director, Richard Duran, our associate AD, Deshina Stevens, Kenyon Spears, Angela Lawson, Tony Dawson. I said a lot of people that have a hand in this, and I'm just extremely proud, to be a part of this university, be a part of this program, and just like I said, just really excited about what the future holds.
Anything else from the floor? Let's go to Alexa.
Hi there, this is Alexa Philippi from ESPN. I'm just curious with this whole experience, especially with this being the first year that the women are doing the first four. What's it just been like for you to kind of take the program from the whirlwind that was last week, finding out where you were headed Sunday, having to kind of quickly make that turnaround, and now that you're kind of through it too, I guess generally speaking, what do you kind of like or feel about the just idea of having these playing games versus to include more teams? Sorry, let me rephrase it. How do you feel about the idea of the fact that there are these playing games to kind of make it to the first round versus the idea of it's including, four more teams in the first place?
Well, to answer your first question about this kind of describing the experience, I think the word that's been tossed around a lot is surreal. You almost have to pinch yourself that you just can't believe it, that this just happened, and just the nature of how we did it. But it was one of the things that we kept talking about, even in defeat, and sometimes it's tough, when you're standing in front of the room after a loss, a close loss, and whether it was Houston Baptist, the #1 seed, a team that swept us in the regular season. It literally came down to the final couple plays both times, and still try to convince your players we can beat these guys, or McNeese State, another team that swept us. We blew those teams out, in the conference tournament, and so obviously our players certainly bought in, to what we were trying to sell, to some extent, or to an extent, I guess, and they kept believing in themselves. They bought into what the coaching staff was trying to, incorporate, implement. So that's rewarding, obviously. The second question, I think the women's game is definitely ready, to have the expanded field. I'm not going to lie to you. If you had to, give me a choice, Coach, do you want to open up against South Carolina, or do you want to open against Howard? We'll take Howard. Okay? And I trust me, Howard would answer the question the same way if she's being truthful. And so I think the women's game, there's enough parity, there's enough depth in the field that I think that you can certainly justify expanding it to 68. And like I said, I'm a fan of the play-in format, for sure. So
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa, and I think we are done here. I appreciate it, Coach. Congratulations on a great season.
my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. Appreciate it.